Welcome, Dolphins fans, haters, and everyone in between to your favorite show discussing the greatest franchise in sports, the Miami Dolphins. This is the PhinsPod. My name is Moose, your host, and the Miami Dolphins face their toughest test to date this Sunday as we go on the road to take on the red-hot San Francisco 49ers. And there are going to be a lot of storylines surrounding this matchup, from the Master v. Apprentice angle that you're going to be hearing all about during pregame, the broadcast itself, of course, Tua versus Jimmy Garoppolo, as well as which of these two teams is the more viable Super Bowl contender. That's going to be one of the takeaways from this. But what truly matters for us Dolphins fans in the end of Sunday afternoon is which team secures the W, because this is a huge final stretch and every game counts. So today, we're going to analyze this matchup for what it is: an elite offense for Miami going up against an elite defense for the Niners. And of course, there's going to be smaller matchups within which will make or break this game. Can the Dolphins get their 9th victory this Sunday, or are we kind of due for a loss? It's time to talk about it, so let's dive in. The Dolphins are opening up as a 3.5-point underdog on the road this weekend, and when you consider that home teams usually get 3 points as is, that line, the 3.5, shows how much doubt surrounds this game. No one knows for sure the type of matchup that's going to be played. And from the macro view, the game is probably going to, in my opinion, play out in one of two ways. This is either going to be a shootout or a low-scoring defensive brawl. I know, how bold of me, but my money goes to the former, a shootout, because the talent on both offenses is too great to hold down for 4 full quarters. Before we get into the micro of this matchup, though, what are these two teams in their life cycle? Where are we? Because this season, the Miami Dolphins currently sit at 8-3, atop the AFC East, and in play for the number 1 seed overall in the conference. We burst onto the scene out of seemingly nowhere to the NFL world, and people are looking at this AFC powerhouse with some side eye. How sustainable is this Dolphins run? Is Miami really going to output this much offense? Is it really this potent and explosive with Tua at the helm? Is Mike McDaniel the next Sean McVay? Is he a genius young head coach? Or are the Dolphins merely a flash in the pan? Is the NFL just waiting to figure out the way that this offense is run? And once it is, there's nothing that special about it? These are the questions that people have around Miami, because what they're seeing right now is electric. The Niners, on the other hand, have been considered a good team for a long time. They've been far more consistent, with a recent Super Bowl appearance and going to the playoffs year in and year out, and it looks like this season will be no different. San Fran, in general, is a model for the league. In fact, it's kind of the model that Miami itself is taking form and shape too, because as we're all aware, Coach McDaniel made his mark under Kyle Shanahan, who first worked alongside with him as a peer under Kyle Shanahan's father, Mike Shanahan, and then ultimately he joined Kyle on his staff with the 49ers. And look, a lot of the Dolphins' core concepts, both in the passing attack and in the running game, it comes from what San Francisco does. So this game really does serve as a litmus test. I mean, if you want to step back from the win or loss, the way that this game is played, I think, is going to tell us a lot about how good these teams are going forward, right? Because if you manage to beat this team or play them competitively in your first year in this new program, talking for Miami now, then the future certainly looks bright. But if the 49ers, who probably know some of your secrets, who kind of understand how the sausage is made offensively, and they wipe us off the field, that's not a good look. Now, from a playoff perspective, both the Niners and Dolphins are positioned very well right now. If not for their respective divisions, definitely considered playoff caliber for a wild card spot. And a loss to the other conference, because again, the Niners are in the NFC, Dolphins, of course, in the AFC. So losing to an out-of-conference team, it's not as big when it comes to playoff seeding calculations later down the line. But as we talked about at the top of the show, at this point in the season, every W helps. Not to mention, Kyle Shanahan does not want his disciple entering into his house and winning. That's not a good look at all. So what are some things to focus on for this all-important Week 13 matchup? Well, starting on the offensive side for Miami, this is where the game is going to be won or lost, in my opinion. Yes, we have been putting up points with ease, but there are two factors which will ultimately determine our success come Sunday afternoon. Firstly, the opponent. The 49ers have one of the best, if not the best, defensive units in the league. Led by future head coach DeMeco Ryans, the Niners play an aggressive style, which often forces opponents' hands and makes you play into their physical nature. Their run defense, top-notch. Their linebacking core with Fred Warner is one of the tops in the league. Their secondary has played well, although that is, if there's any place that Miami can find success, it's in that deeper part of the field attacking their secondary. The issue is Tua's going to need time to get it down to Hill and Waddle. The Dolphins have to play a balanced game when they play on offense in order to keep San Fran on their heels and allow Tua to utilize the play action to its best. So you hope to get Raheem Mostert healthy and back ready to go, which I think he will be. And with former 49er Jeff Wilson, being effective on the ground is vital to having a chance to win this game. I'm not asking for 150 total yards on the ground. I understand the opponent is probably not going to let that happen, but when McDaniel picks his spots and does hand the ball off, you want to see effective running. If we're getting stuffed consistently at the line, struggling to get to second or third and manageable, then the defense, the Niners, can pin their ears back and come after Tua. And that's really relevant to the second key to our offense's overall success, the loss of Terron Armstead and what that means. Now, there is an outside shot that he plays, considering the injury was not as bad as initially feared, but this is only days after, so I highly doubt Miami's going to rush him back out there, and you don't want to risk a worse injury when you can rehab the guy, heal him up for the final stretch when we play the Chargers and the Bills. So although we all want Armstead in for probably no other game than this one when you consider the opponent, if McDaniel at the start of the year was like, I can guarantee one game that Terron will be healthy for, I mean, he probably selfishly would have wanted to pick this one. The Dolphins, without Armstead, have to game plan around the fact that we're probably not going to have, days to sit in the pocket and throw the ball. And that's why having an effective ground game is so important, unlike in other weeks. You can't leave Tua out to dry. You don't want him throwing for 40 or more passes simply because you don't have any ground game. If you need to throw it that much because you're down, because it's a shootout, because you're finding success, great. But you don't want that to be the case because the defense is forcing your hand by stuffing the run every time you even try. If that's the case, and it's a pass-heavy only approach because we cannot run the ball, then you're going to need a masterful performance from Uno, to say the least. And look, I think it's possible, and frankly, for the Tua agenda, that's probably best-case scenario, but I don't want to leave him exposed when we have so much more football left to play. And also, just as a team, as an offense at large, you want to be able to play holistic football. So on the ground, utilize some jet sweeps with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, because aside from just the standard run plays, I want to see some creativity with how we attack the ground, right? Extend the running game with quick passes, quick screens. We get Mostert in space, get Jeff Wilson a screen pass. That guy with a full head of steam is scary. And of course, mix in the traditional run schemes that you have been practicing for months. But the Dolphins have to be able to run the ball for 3 to 5 yards a pop consistently. Because not only does that help with getting to those third and shorts, but it's going to help the passing game overall as well. Because play action passes don't work when the defense doesn't buy into your run game. Becoming that one-dimensional unit is going to kill our ability to execute when we do utilize play action, because, again, that's where we get those chunk strikes over the middle of the field where the linebacker comes up and Tua is able to throw it right over the top for a good 20, 25-yard chunk. If you can't run the ball, then those windows get even tighter. And, again, that there's going to be violent running for the Dolphins because the 49ers essentially told Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson to get out of town. They prefer the flashier names, the younger versions, cheaper, talented, like Elijah Mitchell, right? They said, Jeff, we don't need you. You can go to Miami. So I hope that the former Niner backs play with that anger and chip on their shoulder. You know Mike McDaniel's going to bring it out of them. You know he's going to, without directly saying it, if he might just say it, but hey, I came here, I knew you guys have it. You guys are those guys, but they didn't see it. We got you for a 5th rounder, Jeff. We signed you off the streets, Raheem. The Niners don't think you have anything left. Let's see about that. So I really hope that they play with an aggressive style. And even if the holes aren't necessarily, the widest they've been all season long, have more energy running through them, shed more tackles, be violent and aggressive, because that's only going to help our passing game as well. And again, if we're able to stay away from that one-dimensional style, then you lean on Tua and the passing attack and have it come alive. Because the Niners are good at getting to the quarterback, and they're decent in pass coverage. But let's be honest, they haven't faced anyone like Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. Miami has to utilize their speed to gain those chunks quickly. Because if you're concerned about pass protection, the best way to combat that is by getting the ball out of your quarterback's hands in a hurry. And the benefit for Miami is simple. If you can get your guy, an average receiver, to 8 yards in 2.5 seconds, then you know what? Our guy will get to 12 yards. So we'll be able to get larger chunks faster than most other teams, which could neutralize this pass rush if we lean into the quick passing game early. So quick slants, RPO action, and shots to the flats should be used in bunches to help keep this defensive line back. You want the offense to feel rhythmic, of course. You don't want to take, the offense out from what has been working just because you're scared of some pressure. But you don't necessarily want to play into the hands of DeMeco Ryans. You want the Niners' defense to be off balance. You want to come in with that plan of attack. And look, I expect Miami to still take deep shots early in the game, because not only is that going to open up the potential for some of those quicker strikes and potentially yak chunk plays, but it's going to force the defense to take a step back, open up the middle of the field, and respect your speed on the outside. So having a few shots taken in the first quarter, I think, will be really important to setting the tone with the Niners as to how we play offense. And this, in turn, should, like I said, help the quick passing attack, because you got your corners backed up, given a wide cushion, which lets you get 8 yards with the snap of your fingers. Here's the thing. If Tua has time in the pocket, right, regardless of their cornerbacks, if Tua has time, he will shred this defense, because he can shred pretty much any defense at the level that he's been playing at. But the 49ers are not the best when it comes to one-on-ones on the outside. What they do well is front seven. Their stellar run defense and overall pass rush from the edge, it forces opposing quarterbacks into mistakes and into checkdowns, which ultimately shut down drives. If Tua is getting beat up back there, we'll see it early. And look, things could turn ugly if Miami's unable to protect him without Terron Armstead. But if Mike McDaniel can craft a game plan knowing these limitations to get the ball out of Tua's hands quickly into the hands of your top playmakers, we're going to be in this football game. I would like to see some boot action involved, utilize the screen game, and like we mentioned, the RPOs, because it gives Tua the option, depending on the look, to pull it and throw it if the window's there, or just take the run and survive for another down. And clearly, the last 5 minutes of commentary, you can tell, is coming from a scarred Dolphins fan, because we know better than what a ton of other fan bases around the league know, which is shoddy offensive line play can ruin an offense. Shut it down. And we have been blessed with relative health for Terron Armstead. No, he's been nursing some injuries, but he's been managing to play. But with that now in doubt, the calculus shifts drastically. If you have a combination of Brandon Shell, Austin Jackson, Greg Little playing at the tackle position, Nick Bosa and the rest of that stellar front seven will get to Tua and disrupt our passing attack. But damn, McDaniel has proven that a full week of coaching helps him scheme for potential deficiencies. The one thing to note is, as concerned as we all felt watching Tua get sacked like 3 plays in a row the second Armstead went down right before he got pulled, that was kind of last second. That wasn't the plan. There was no plan to have Brandon Shell kick out and have Austin Jackson hurt his ankle, minutes before, minutes after. It was kind of haphazard. But Mike McDaniel has time to know what players are available to him, who's going to be starting, and try to make a game plan with those limits in mind. And like I said, he's proven it before. If you think back to the Vikings game, you had Skylar Thompson slated to start. For the full week, he was the starter. He took first-team reps. He was sitting in the room asking questions as QB1. And before he hurt his finger, he looked good. It almost seemed like we might pull off a win with our third-string quarterback against, at the time, what was considered a really top-end team. The offense was working around him, and you could tell it was tailored to what he specifically did well. Now, ultimately, like I said, he got injured, and then Teddy Bridgewater came in with that game plan for Skylar in place, and it wasn't as effective. But the evidence of what he can do, Mike McDaniel can do with a deficient talent given time, is he can scheme it up. And that's what I'm hoping you see with the offensive line. So Miami's success this weekend offensively, it boils down to the trenches. I have faith in Tua. I don't have faith in the offensive line without Terron Armstead. But if they can hold their own and get push, provide a semblance of a running attack, and hopefully with the help of an angry Jeff Wilson and angry Raheem Mostert, overall get that ground game going, and that in turn protects Tua for the majority of the game, then I think we're in a position to score like we've been scoring. However, if Tua is running for his life, if his mental clock is sped up and our running game is non-existent, which has been the case way too many times this year, we may struggle to convert on third downs and continuously place our defense in tough positions. Even if they're playing well, if we're not able to sustain drives, eventually against the Niners, the dam will break. And from a defensive perspective, the script looks kind of similar for what I want to see on our offense, where just reverse it, right? The 49ers like to spread the ball around, get the ball out quick, and they're most lethal when combined with those weapons on the outside, their ground game is hitting. The good news for Miami is that 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo is not very mobile, so that style of quarterback that kills us won't be in play this weekend. So you don't have to worry about him scampering for 10 yards on a consistent basis. To further hurt the Niners' rushing attack, their rotational back and Christian McCaffrey's backup, Elijah Mitchell, suffered an MCL sprain, and he's probably not going to be suiting up against Miami. But hey, they still have Christian McCaffrey. The Dolphins' first order of business is to do what we've been doing best all season long defensively, and that's shut opposing running backs down. If McCaffrey similarly struggles to get the ball rolling on the ground, then likewise, you force the 49ers to become one-dimensional. The difference, though, between us being one-dimensional and the Niners being one-dimensional, they have Jimmy, and we have Tua. Of course, Jimmy's got the weapons. Brandon Ayuk is one of the best second receivers you could have. George Kittle, an absolute menace over the middle, both as a passing receiver and as a blocker. And of course, the two guys who do it all, Deebo Samuel and the aforementioned Christian McCaffrey. But by shutting down that traditional running game, you force the Niners to become more of a traditional drop-back passing attack. And yes, they have the horses for it, but Jimmy Garoppolo does not play well when he's pressured, when it's all on his shoulders. If he's not playing with a lead, if it's a tight game, you're getting to him, you're rattling his cage a little bit. Jimmy is not the best pocket passer. Over recent weeks for Miami, the tandem of Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb have been getting better and better. With just a four-man rush now, the Dolphins should be able to get to Garoppolo at times and try to make his life miserable, try to speed up his mental clock, and get him throwing off his back foot, floating some into the hands of Andrew Van Ginkel. Now, does that mean that I think we're going to hold their offense down? Probably not. The talent they have is just too much to keep them at a goose egg. But I do think the Dolphins can keep the Niners under 20 points if you're able to stop them on the ground. And although these two offenses we're going to see on Sunday play technically within the same system, they go about moving the ball very differently. The Niners, they want to win with the ground game first. Ultimately, then open up the passing game and kill you with quick screen passes and yak. While Miami, we lead with our passing attack. The winner of that duel, who's able to do what they want to do first and more effectively, we'll see early on. And that likely is going to be the team that wins the game when they're able to limit what the opposing offense wants to do. If Christian McCaffrey is averaging 5 yards a carry and the Niners are sitting in 2nd and 6, 2nd and 3, 3rd and 2 consistently, it's going to be hard to get off the field. But if the Dolphins shut down that ground game like they did against Nick Chubb and the Browns and most recently Dameon Pierce, they should have a good shot of forcing Jimmy into some mistakes, which ultimately could turn the tide of the game as a whole. So to summarize how this game could go, for Miami on offense, their first rule is to protect Tua. Give him the time. Allow him to sit back and get into rhythm. If he's dealing and feeling comfortable, we're going to be in this game regardless. He is that good. Second, you have to try to establish a ground game. Stick with it. Don't abandon it. Even if it's not working, try to keep the 49ers as honest as you can. And if you want to attack the secondary with Waddle and Hill, have the defense selling out to stop your ground game. That's why you need to stick with it. If they're able to do that and have their base defense, be moving up, sucked into our run action, they're screwed. Then we will hit them over the top. This offense will be able to move. Because I have no doubt in my mind that if Miami's able to do that and give Tua some time, obviously a few sacks is fine, but I'm just talking about consistent pressure. You want to keep them off of him. If we're able to do that, then we're going to put up points and make this a very winnable game. If Armstead was in, I would feel incredibly confident about this matchup because that's really my only concern is establishing that ground game and protecting Tua. But with these backup tackles, the fear of protection, that's why I'm a little queasy about it. And for the defense of Miami, they have to turn San Francisco into a team that they don't want to be. Stop the run, force second and third and longs, force Jimmy to read the field and find the open guy. And it's something that he can do, but if you ask him to do it enough, he's prone to a mistake, and that's a mistake that your defense will capitalize on. You want to limit their ground game, and then as a result, you limit their offense as a whole when you consider how much of their passing concepts are built off of play action and fake run action as well. So ultimately, you stop the run, you stop a big chunk of this 49ers offense. And secondly, this defense, you got to fly around. No more missed tackles. There's open field guys running around who act like running backs. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. Hell, a running back, Christian McCaffrey, will be going out for a slant route. So you want to make Jimmy distressed, not fully comfortable. And if that's the case, then this defense could be in line for an interception or two. Here's my prediction for the game. I know I have talked a lot about some potential pitfalls, and trust me, they're there. I'm going to be watching those tackles right from the kickoff. But here's the thing. This game is shaping up to be ultimately quarterback versus quarterback. Which passer will make the bigger plays in the bigger moments and shy away from mistakes? And my money there is on Tua. Until we see him defeated in a regular season game in which he starts and finishes, I'm not picking against him. I see the Dolphins pulling this off in a nail-biter, 27-24. Now, it could very well go the other way, and we'll be dissecting the game with a win or a loss. What I don't want to see is Miami get trounced, because not only does that put some fear in my mind of just how reliant we are on Terron Armstead, but it also adjusts the way I will look at this team. If you're really a Super Bowl caliber team, Armstead or not, you compete with the best of the best and the other Super Bowl caliber teams, and the Niners are that. They can very well earn their way to winning the conference, and seeing how that they stack up as the season goes along is going to be very interesting because, again, we run a very similar system. So it's good to see the Niners succeed. It means that what Mike McDaniel has learned from works. I'm also going to be watching the trenches. How is Miami accounting for the backups that are going to be along the line? And these are things that we need to be wary of because the football world is becoming more and more aware of us. It was actually announced that Miami's Week 14 matchup against the LA Chargers has now been flexed out of the original 4:05 p.m. kickoff and will now be aired on national TV. Prime time, Sunday night football. It's been flexed out into Sunday night. The whole world will be tuning in to see just how legit our Dolphins team is. And, of course, Tua versus Justin Herbert. And we'll be getting into that matchup in depth next week, so be sure to subscribe. As for this weekend's opponent, it's going to be fascinating to watch. I'm really interested to see how McDaniel attempts to mask certain deficiencies while highlighting the litany of weapons on our squad. It's going to be a chess match and one that I really look forward to. So there's my prediction. Miami 27, San Francisco 24. What do you guys think? Is it going to be higher scoring? Could this get into the 40s? Or do you think one of these teams is being a little bit overrated or perhaps underrated and will end up dominating the other? Let us know. Give us your score predictions in the comment section below.
This is legit. You know, when he went out of the game this past weekend, they dropped Tua back 11 times. Yeah. He sacked 4 of those 11 dropbacks. If you ask what Miami's offense has excelled at this year, it's the RPO world, it's the get the ball to your hands quick world, it's the move the pocket world. How much can they actually lean into that even more to make sure San Francisco, to make sure that they don't kind of expose Tua to unnecessary hits?
To your point, they pulled him early. Real early. I bet you one drive in the third quarter, not because just the lead, the hits.
I bet you with that, they'll copy what Kansas City did against San Francisco a little bit offensively.
Can't wait for Sunday.
That's going to do it for us here today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the PhinsPod. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you as always to Timothy Ritchie, Brian Guger, Chris, Commander Pig, and Dan Kolbasowski, members of the pod and supporters of the show over on Patreon. Please check that out. Links in the description, or head to patreon.com/PhinsPod. Thank you all so much for the support over there. It really means a lot. And if you liked the video, please remember to give it a like on YouTube and subscribe just so you never miss a chance to chat about your Miami Dolphins. Remember, if you prefer audio, the show is available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and of course, here visually on YouTube. Continue the conversation with us over on Twitter and Instagram @PhinsPod. I hope you all have an amazing day, and until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.